spiritual reality, the 11th lesson in the study of Moses, God's man for the moment. We're calling it Manna, Meat, and Sabbath. And we're going to come face to face with one of those issues I mentioned a while ago that the Hebrew people always had with God, and that is dealing with the Sabbath day. It's in a little bit different context in this chapter, and we'll begin in verse 1. Then they set out from Elim, and all the congregation of the sons of Israel came into the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departure from the land of Egypt. So we're about 6 weeks into the journey from Egypt to Canaan, I guess, if I'm understanding that correctly. And we've had some pretty unusual experiences already. The miracles of the Red Sea were powerful, and God was gracious in his provision. I guess the people have been living all this time on the loaves or lumps of unleavened dough that they brought with them out of Egypt. But we're coming on some issues here now. The whole congregation of the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The sons of Israel said to them, "Would that we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat." Just smell that garlic and the leeks. Smell that oregano. She's making pot roast tonight. Oh, that's awesome. We sat by the pots. We were eating bread to the full. And here you brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. If I were Moses, I'd have said, I hear you. I mean, this is a nip and tuck deal. 1.5 million people in a wilderness. Water is a huge issue. I don't know if they must have had a way to carry some amount of water with them. They couldn't just go for days in between water stops. And then food for this many people. And you think you have babies and children that have to be cared for, and you're constantly pitching and tearing down a tent. This is hard. It's really hard. It's the pathway to freedom, but freedom isn't coming cheap. And the Lord said to Moses in verse 4, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether or not they will walk in my instruction." This bread from heaven is going to come with some parameters and instructions, and we're going to find out if you'll obey or not. So on the 6th day, when they prepare what they bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather daily. So Moses and Aaron said to the sons of Israel, "At evening you will know that the Lord has brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, for he hears your grumbling against the Lord. And what are we that you grumble against us?" Moses said, "This will happen when the Lord gives you meat to eat in the evening and bread to the full in the morning, for the Lord hears your grumbling, which you grumble against him. And what are we?" Your grumblings are not actually against us, but against the Lord. I think Moses is learning a few lessons in leadership as he goes along. If he took personally what the people had to say to him and about him, it'd tear him up. But he's learning to realize they're actually talking against God, who is the one telling me what to do and say. So the complaint is not really with me. Well, in verse 9, Moses said to Aaron, "Say to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling." It came about as Aaron spoke to the whole congregation of the sons of Israel that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. That means the cloud was radiant. That means the cloud was bright like a welder's torch. Powerful light emanating from it, probably accompanied by some lightning and thunder and some other sounds that maybe nobody had heard before. The glory of God is powerful. It's indefinable, and it's amazing. and you're going to see it in the cloud. And it appeared. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, I've heard the grumblings of the sons of Israel. Speak to them, saying, At twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am the Lord your God. The one thing I notice consistent with God, no matter what else he is doing, underneath it all, what does he want? People to know him. I want you to know who I am. And you're going to know who I am. And that's going to be the beauty of this entire thing. Well, it came about that the quails came up in the evening and covered the camp. And in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. And when the layer of dew evaporated, behold, on the surface of the wilderness, there was a fine flake-like thing, fine as the frost on the ground. Oh, and I noticed one thing about water. There was dew. If there was dew every day, they could rig up a way to catch that and have water constantly. I just noticed the dew. I wouldn't have expected that in this wilderness, but here we are. So when the sons of Israel saw it, this thing, flake-like thing, fine as the frost on the ground, they said to one another, What is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, It's the bread which the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather of it every man as much as he should eat. You shall take an omer apiece, according to the number of persons each of you has in his tent. So the sons of Israel did this, and some gathered much, and some little. When they measured it with an omer, whoever had gathered much had no excess, and he who had gathered little had no lack. So this is kind of miracle, what is it, so far? And everybody had what he needed to eat. So Moses said to them, Let no man leave any of it until morning. Don't get the idea that tomorrow morning you're going to sleep in, so tonight you'll save a little manna for then and don't have to worry about getting up so early. That won't work. But they didn't listen to Moses. And some of them left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and became foul, and Moses was angry with them. Poor guy. These people are about as cooperative as a herd of cats, and he is just, he's starting to get sick of it. I mean, we're a month and a half or a little better into the trek, and between the grumbling and the fault finding, and now a simple thing, don't leave it overnight. We left some overnight. Well, go then eat worms. Man, they gathered it morning by morning, every man as much as he should eat, but when the sun grew hot, it would melt. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much to take care of the Sabbath day, because they weren't to get up the next morning on Sabbath and go out and collect it. But it came about in verse 27 that about on the seventh day that some of the people went out to gather. They found none. So you got the wormy crowd, you got the can't find anything crowd, and all they had to do was what they were told. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that how we are, though, sometimes? We just can't find a way to do the simplest thing. We know better. We know better. I certainly see that propensity in my life. I have never been good with rules. I guess I was born thinking rules are made to be broken. I don't know. I was born in Montana, and when I learned to drive and got my license, there was no speed limit in Montana on highways. There was a night limit of 55 miles an hour or possibly even 50. But the daytime limit, prudent and something. They gave two adjectives for how you were to drive. So for many years, I just sort of believed that since I was born into that situation, that pertained to me wherever I was driving. And a couple times I had a learning experience about that. But rules aren't bad. I mean, you've got two rules with manna, or with what is it so far? Don't hold it overnight, and make sure you collect enough to cover the Sabbath without having to go out on that day. That's one night that you do hold it overnight. They couldn't get it. So anyway, they by and large, they did what they should have, and they were dealing with another picture of Jesus. In John 6 and verse 35, Jesus said, "I am the bread of life." And then he went on into a teaching communication in which he identified himself as the bread that came down from heaven. He said, "Moses gave you bread, but that bread didn't last, couldn't even hold it overnight, had to be replaced every day, but I am the living bread. And the bread that I offer you to eat is my flesh. And the wine that I offer you to drink is my blood." And here in the Old Testament, these people gave a graphic illustration of finding satisfaction in Jesus. Do you know that you can eat and drink Jesus right now? As a born-again child of God, he lives in your spirit. Your soul, your inner man, your mind, emotion, and will can partake of him as broken bread and poured out wine. You can eat him and find soul and total and complete satisfaction, lasting. You never thirst again, never hunger again when you partake of Jesus. And sometimes it's easier to partake of things through the body. Sometimes your mind, emotion, and will look to your flesh and looks for an experience or satisfaction or nourishment. And it can't be found there. Nothing that will truly give you what you're looking for. Turn to Jesus and say, "Lord, as those Israelites hundreds of years ago, thousands, ate the manna in the wilderness, so I want to consume you." Verse 28, the Lord said to Moses, "How long do you refuse to keep my commandments, my instructions? See, the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore he gives you bread for 2 days. On the 6th day, remain every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day. And the house of Israel named this substance from heaven manna, which in Hebrew means, what is it? They named it manna, and it was like coriander seed, white, and its taste was like wafers with honey. It probably was really good the first day, maybe the first week, or even a month. Wafers and honey, I mean, I'm thinking of a nice wafer, something better than a graham cracker, but a crispy thing that you put a little honey on and eat it. That would taste good. But every day, 3 days, 3 meals a day after day, that might get to be an issue. We'll find out. And then Moses said to Aaron in 33, "Take a jar and put an omer full of manna in it and place it before the Lord to keep throughout your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be kept. And the sons of Israel ate the manna 40 years. Whoa. I bet by then they had a few ways to fix it other than just straight up. But I don't know what they might be. Have you ever heard Keith Green's song, "So You Want to Go Back to Egypt"? Oh, man, find that song. I'm sure it's on iTunes to this day. Keith Green, "So You Want to Go Back to Egypt." Oh, it's great. And he talks in there about them eating manna and all the ways they tried to jazz it up. Well, God is faithful. God provides. He takes care even of grumblers. And we have this manna. We had some quail. We've got what we need. If we can just remember to obey the Sabbath, everything will be good. That's what the Hebrews struggled with so hard. What about the Sabbath in our day? Well, there are believers who believe that Saturday is still in force and the Sabbath and should be honored. I can respect that. There are believers who feel that the resurrection of Jesus on that first resurrection Sunday morning point to his triumph over everything, including the fulfillment of law and triumph over it, which all it did was condemn us. So they worship on Sunday. But everybody needs to do what God leads them to do. And there's that one verse in Isaiah, I can't give you the reference, but I can remember much of its content, where God says, if you on the Sabbath will refrain from talking about yourselves and refrain from entertaining yourselves and all of that, and give me that day, I will bless you to where you won't be able to contain it. And that is such a powerful promise. I think the key to the whole concept is giving God time. After all, a day is nothing but a collection of hours. So find a way to bless him with the sacrifice of those hours, any day of the week, any days throughout the week, and honor him in that way. You think about that. Lord Jesus, we love you and thank you for your word. We thank you for your provision for your people and for us, and best of all, how we can partake of you. Your flesh and blood is broken bread and poured out wine, and be satisfied. It's wonderful, Lord, and we bless you for it. In the name, Lord Jesus, amen. Well, thanks for joining me today. It's been good. And Spiritual Reality is brought to you by Rekindle the Flame Ministries at the Hub in Midland, Texas. God bless you.